You wouldn't have thought for a moment that I would come and spend a year in Africa. Charity drives, no African drumming clubs, nothing. I don't even like Bono. This is how it happened. One morning, early in the morning, at the daily chapel service my old school subjected us to, a rather short man walked up to the podium and began to speak. That man's name was Fred Swaniker. Mr. Swaniker is surely a remarkable speaker, but I believe it was not his charisma that made me fight my drooping eyelids and pay attention. Rather, it was his idea. ALA, a school that will educate the future leaders of Africa to transform the continent. At the time, I was struggling with the seeming intractability of the problems I saw around me, but I still believed in the possibility of change. So when Mr. Swaniker stood up in front of all of us and proclaimed his message of transformation, it was a powerful experience. My inner belief in progress was reaffirmed. I saw his vision, and I believed in it. Sitting there in that uncomfortable pew, I could see the transformation in front of me, as real and tangible as the dusty hymnal in my hands. That is when I decided to apply to ALA. A few applications, interviews, and plane flights later, here I am in Johannesburg. I'd never been to Africa. I'd met perhaps 10 Africans in my entire life. Africa, in my mind, was a faraway place of war and poverty, not yet the home of my friends. When I arrived, Africa was not important to me. After all, what compelled me to come here was transformation, proving that transformation could occur, wherever. And then I met all of you. I remember my welcome here. It was warmer than the welcome I might receive in my own home. By the end of the first week, I could feel my perception of Africa changing, and with it, my perception of myself and the world. Perhaps the most powerful moment occurred in the 4th week after we arrived. The school had just given us our tracksuits, and we were taken around to all the community service sites in them. I felt ridiculous. Like an all-maroon alien. A feeling which was continually reinforced when we would arrive at the sites. There were often crowds of young children who, judging by the looks of shock and awe I saw on their face, had not seen very many white people before. For the first time in my life, I felt truly foreign, like a lost child far from home. Adding to my disorientation, I could not understand the poverty I saw. There are no informal settlements in Grand Rapids, no aids, no dusty schools packed with desperately poor children. I had never seen anything like it in my entire life. At one particular school, near the Achanan Clinic, I escaped the crowds of children and wandered through the school with a South African friend. The day had just ended, and most of the children were out front, waiting to be brought home. We meandered through the buildings, observing empty classrooms in the charming courtyards. I was a few steps ahead, and I looked into one classroom to discover a young girl playing with a doll on the floor. For a startled moment, we looked at each other. She seemed absolutely terrified of me. Luckily, my South African friend appeared and spoke to the girl. She responded with a terse question, which I later found out was, "What's the white guy doing here?" Behind me, I could hear Mr. Myers telling everyone that it was time to go. I smiled, waved, said goodbye, and then left, my South African friend just a few steps behind me. She caught up to me as we were boarding the bus. "Hugh," she said, "if you had taken that child's hand, you would have made her day." I didn't know what to say, so I smiled weakly. She laughed. "You have a lot to learn," she said. My South African friend was right. I was afraid of that young child, simply because she was different than I. Clearly, the feeling was mutual, and in that mutual fear, I saw an important truth. We, as a globe, are too often afraid of each other, too quick to throw others into the vast category of other. Before I arrived here, I had done that to Africa. Africa was to me a distant place with distant problems that had no bearing on my life. Now I realize, nearly halfway through my time at ALA, nothing could be further from the truth. Once we see that we are all people, Africa's problems become the world's problems. Similarly, African solutions become global solutions. In other words, as Africa goes, so does the world. Once we remove the obstacle of other, it becomes obvious that we all have a common destiny. And after 5 months here, I am certain that destiny runs through Africa. I don't yet know how this evolving understanding will shape my life. I turned 19 yesterday. And with 5 more months at ALA, who knows how I will change? Soon, I'm going to college, and then life, and I have absolutely no idea what is in store. I do, however, know one thing. ALA has changed the course of my life, and judging by my friends here, it's going to change Africa's course as well. Thank you.